Two former employees of a company that received billions in Eskom contracts appeared in court in Johannesburg today. Mohammed Muideen and his wife Raisa are charged with corruption, fraud and money laundering. They are accused of inflating the cost of subcontracts for work done at the Kusile and Matla power stations. Gervin Whittles was in court and he joins me now. So Gervin, just give us the context of when this was happening, what these contracts were about, and what they were commissioned to do.
Well, Sally, this was around 2016, and the person in the dock today, Mohammed Muideen, was working at ABB at the time, which had received 2.2 billion rand contract from Eskom to do some work at Kusile on its controllers and instrumentation, and then also some work at the Matla power station. The total contract that this guy, Mr. Mohammed Muideen, was alleged to be involved in was around 600 million rand. And what he's accused of doing is inflating the price of fixing the instrumentation and the controls at Kusile and at Matla in a subcontract which was then awarded to Impulse International. So he was an employee of ABB at this time, and he's accused of inflating that costs, and in response for doing this, he's accused of receiving a 38 million rand bribe. That's why he's in the dock. That's the fraud and the corruption and money laundering. His wife is in the dock because she's alleged to have received 2 vehicles that were also given to him as bribes, and then registering those vehicles in her maiden name, a Golf GTI and a Mercedes-Benz. So she's in the dock for money laundering specifically. And these pair are part of a high-profile case. The NPA says it's high-profile because it helps them understand exactly how Eskom was targeted by subcontractors and big contractors, but also which kind of Eskom officials, or who the Eskom officials were that were involved in setting up these deals. And this is essentially the calm before the storm. And we'll get to that in a moment, but let's have a look first at what the Investigative Directorate spokesperson had to say about the significance of these 2 arrests.
4 people actually were arrested today. 2 were arrested in KZN and the other 2 arrested in Middelburg in Mpumalanga and then brought here and ran back to appear. Both of these 2 groups of people will be made into one group and they'll appear together. However, because of the distance of the others that we've arrested, hence both of these parties appeared separately. But what we must also state is that this for us is a big matter. For starters, today we also embarked on a search and seizure because there's other outstanding information which we wanted to go through to assess, to find out what we believe was the altering of some of the documentation that was provided to SARS. This is an initiative between ourselves, the Hawks, as well as SARS in terms of the search and seizure. But coming back to your initial question about how this is a high-profile matter, it's because of the schedule. It's also because of the fact that we're talking about 672 million rand that was benefited by ABB through what we believe were the assistance of these particular persons, especially in terms of Impulse and the work that it had to provide to ABB.
All right, so she's mentioned ABB and Impulse, another company. Have we heard anything about involvement in top Eskom people? Is this where this could go?
This is where the Investigative Directorate hopes it goes. They're saying that what they're looking for now is who instigated the talks for these contracts to be awarded in such a manner that the kickbacks would be paid. So essentially, who was the person at Eskom who was allegedly going to ABB saying you have to appoint Impulse International as a subcontractor, and then who spoke to Mr. Mohammed Muideen and then said inflate the costs so that you could get a kickback of 38 million rand. What's interesting here is that they read out the list of witnesses that are expected in this trial. And it does appear that the Investigative Directorate has a long list of people who are involved not only in the companies but also at Eskom who are ready to testify. And considering the charges that are brought against Mr. Muideen, the questions now are whether or not he'll start to cooperate with the state and then open the door to exposing some of these top officials who are overlooking some of these deals.
And a lot of this was dealt with in the state capture report. So the whole country is eager to see prosecutions linked to what the state capture has been investigating for the past few years. So this is welcome news indeed. Very quickly, I just want you to talk to us about also a state capture related issue, but this is dealing with Bosasa. Angelo Agrizzi, who of course was the whistleblower on Bosasa's alleged corrupt deals with the state. He also, of course, is facing charges in court as the former COO. He was meant to be in court today. What happened?
People have been waiting a long time to see Angelo Grizi in the dock. He couldn't appear before because he's had serious health issues, and this has led to the case against him being postponed on multiple occasions. It's reached the point where the Investigative Directorate has now sought an independent clarity from the court on whether or not Angelo Grizi really is too ill to stand trial. And in response to that, they've launched an application for a medical inquiry. That means the Investigative Directorate will find an independent pulmonologist, and then Angelo Grizi, the ID says, has already met with the pulmonologist as well as the specialists, and now a date has been set in the High Court. Let's have a look again at what the Investigative Directorate spokesperson had to say about Mr. Grizi and when he's likely to find out whether he's fit enough to stand trial.
So today, the matter actually was heard in the Palm Ridge Specialized Crimes Court. It has been postponed to October, where it's actually postponed to obtain a High Court date to take it to the High Court, and the medical inquiry will be heard there. You will know that just last month and the month before, in May, we also appointed a pulmonologist, an independent pulmonologist, to assess Mr. Angelo Grizi. So both assessments of his doctors, specialists, as well as the state-appointed one will be assessed, and a determination will be made whether or not he's fit or not to stand trial.
Important developments in two cases linked to state capture. Thank you so much for those updates. That's our reporter, Govan Whittles.